Hey, hello! Miv here, aka Lady Mirravin. Got some speed art of Frosting the Dragon Girl being converted into a cute, slightly spicy Draggle Bear. People usually talk over these nowadays, so that makes me obligated to do the same to make this more interesting, right? I think the meta right now is story times and thought pieces. Well, my brain is almost always empty because chronic illness related fog brain keeps my brain nice and empty. So, story time it is then. But what story can I really pair with a video of me turning a spicy character into a cutesy character? What about the time where I lost a bit of my childhood innocence via my mother? That's totally appropriate on topic. I mean, we're going from less innocent to more innocent in the drawing, but details. Anywho, how do people usually open these? Let's go old storybook style for this one. Once upon a time, there was a very sheltered and naive 12-year-old who wasn't allowed to have outside of school activities or leave the house for anything outside of family events and sport events. She would always see the other kids at school wearing earrings and makeup and getting to shave their legs, and she wanted to do all of those things too. Mostly so that the other children wouldn't treat her like a social pariah, so that she could have at least one place in her life that was somewhat peaceful and not stressful instead of being constantly ridiculed over, existing. She didn't want to live too fast as her mother claimed the other kids at school were doing. She simply wanted to fit in enough to be invisible. Just invisible enough to be left alone. Because at that point, she just wanted to be left alone. She didn't want to try for friends anymore. She just wanted to not have to deal with being picked at. Something I feel anyone would want and deserve. At any rate, the mother simply insisted that she knew best and that the girl would thank her for her insight when she was older. She thought her mother was too overbearing and ignorant, even then, of her struggles to really understand, and desperately wanted to try wearing makeup, even if she'd still be harassed for her non-existent leg hair. That was barely visible under the sunlight, but still got her tormented on a daily basis in most social settings because kids are absolute butts. But remember, kids, not having thick leg hair later in life is very much worth the mental abuse given out by other children for not shaving it. Side note, it wasn't. It did mean literally no favors because I have naturally blonde and thin leg hair, and by the way, hair doesn't get thicker by cutting it. It's been an established myth for literally decades at this point. Of course, people who spend their whole lives studying how the human body works have to be wrong about that one thing, right? But she thinks they're wrong about lots of things. But that's another story for another time. So, during the time of year when her parents let her pick out her Christmas present to be the presents to be presented on Christmas Day, I was scared as Santa as a kid, so the whole Santa thing was let out of the bag very early for me. So no dice on the whole mom being woke against the whole social norm of lying to generations in a woefully misguided attempt to foster imagination here. The daughter picked out a cheap makeup set meant for 5-year-olds. You know the kind, right? The lipstick is slightly tinted chapstick. The nail polish is that weird rubbery kind that peels off immediately after you paint it on. It was all the kind of not really real makeup stuff, and I'm genuinely confused why she even let me have it, because I was a child and I wasn't in need of it, nor should I want to look sexy. Her words, not mine. It came in a chunky plastic pastel box with gold lettering on it. Its interior was also chunky plastic, except it was pink instead of blue. It was an obvious child's toy geared to children far under my age. To me, that did not really matter. It was in the toy aisle, I put it in the cart, my mom chastised me for that choice, but she didn't make me put it back. So I was going to wear some makeup, even if it wasn't anything like the real thing, to at least feel pretty. or feel like I was doing something other people my age got to do. Fast forward many months after Christmas, and I've worn all the makeup and nail polish several times, none of which left the house because that was the rule of me having it in the first place. And I really did just sort of love it. I even kind of got into the whole peel off nail polish because I got some weird joy out of pulling the stuff off and putting on more. I think people call this sort of thing textile fidgeting or something like that nowadays. I don't know if that's still a thing with that type of nail polish, but it worked for me, I suppose. Anyway, I'm doing chores and I'm dusting off a shelf or something, and my mom suddenly wheels over to me for seemingly no reason, grabs my arm, and point blank asks me if I've been having oral sex. Why did my mother ask this to a 12-year-old that she already kept from having little to no social reactions with people outside the house with the excuse that she didn't know any of the other people's parents? Oh, because I was wearing the fake lipstick that she bought me for Christmas that apparently looked too red to be anything other than me, the 12-year-old, sucking someone off. I am dead serious. I was, of course, utterly confused. I had no idea what sex even involved, much less what this newfangled oral sex could even be. Yet she was adamant that I, the 12-year-old child, had to know exactly what she was talking about and what the word or phrase oral sex even meant. Just think about that. Child, 12-year-old sheltered child who didn't get to be out in the world and be worldly, as it's called. And she accused me of having oral sex. And she continued on these accusations until I'd been brought to tears because I had no idea how to defuse this situation. No idea. I was being confronted by this very angry adult who was accusing me of things that I did not understand. But this is life, I suppose. My mom finally had to admit that maybe I had no clue what she was accusing me of, and then proceeded to explain to me what blowjobs were. Because that's the right course of action, right? Thus, my innocent little mind was completely blown. Put my mouth on a penis? Yes, she said penis. She didn't use dick or cock or any of the other, like, formal words. She used, like, medical terms. And she did this with a lot of things and thought she was doing me some sort of favor. I don't know. Maybe that was the only good thing she ever did, was explain things in technical terms. But I digress. That place where boys pee from. Penises. Why in Sam heck would I want to do anything as gross as put my mouth on a boy's wee-wee? I didn't understand it. I didn't get why anyone would get gratification from this weird and oddly new thing that she was telling me people actually did. And I told her as much. And I think that's the point in which she finally started to believe me. And figured out that it was just the tinted chapstick and not me being sexually active. To this day, I don't know how she expected me to even know such a thing existed. Much less how she expected me to have the opportunity to do such a thing. Did she think my dad was somehow involved with me and confronted me for it? The 12-year-old? I mean, that doesn't make it better. that actually makes it worse. Or did she somehow think I was doing stuff with my brothers, one of which was older than me? That's not really good either. I'm not sure how as an adult, I find the whole notion even more ridiculous the more I have to sit down and think, this actually happened to me. Why did this happen to me? Like, this isn't the worst thing that's ever happened to me because of my parents. This is very tame. But the more I think about it, the more I have to think about how truly upsetting and messed up this would be if I did this to one of my children. Especially when she started fussing at me with this, and I didn't even know what was happening. I didn't understand what was going on. That should have been her first clue that I was not doing the thing that she was accusing me of, because I was not aware of what that word even meant. At any rate, I lived on thinking that was pretty gross up until I got married. Yeah, I know, naive, what can I tell you? And my ex-husband expected that sort of thing from me, so I sort of got used to the idea of that not being a bad thing. Somehow. I didn't hold on to any trauma from that bit of my relationship, and I don't have any emotional stigmas against giving blowjobs to sexual partners in this present day, so I guess that wasn't done in a bad way. I don't know. I'll have to reevaluate my life as a whole at this point. But honestly, that would be another story that I'm not so sure would be appropriate for YouTube. Anyway, that's the however unhinged story of how I learned about oral sex from my mother. Yeah. My final thoughts on this, the part that isn't scripted. I think that it is totally okay to tell your children, even the 12-year-olds, about things as they come up. Admittedly, that was when it came up. The thing is that it should not have come up. Because I can't not imagine a situation in which I looked at my child's face and the first possible, thought that popped into my head would be to accuse them of something I find immoral. Because she very much did find it immoral for obvious reasons, besides just the fact that I was 12. But it's the whole being religious and stuff like that. My family has always been super religious. I obviously didn't carry that tradition on for many reasons I'm not really going to get into at this moment. If that's something people are interested in knowing at some point. I don't know if that's something I would share or not, because to be honest, I want to stay away from controversial topics that have to do with people's opinions and things of that nature, just because there's always going to be someone who disagrees, and that's always going to lead to hate, and I don't want to deal with hate that is unnecessary. So if I can avoid unnecessary hate, that's what I'm going to do. So otherwise, if I don't have to talk about it, I won't talk about it, and I won't have to deal with the unnecessary hate. Anywho, back to the topic. I guess It's one of those things where I guess some of it can be chalked up to the fact that I was born in a time where religious things like that were like more important than the social dynamics going on in the world. And a lot of what she told me would have still been considered like a normal thing to do. Now, I don't know if I would argue that it's child abuse, but it's definitely not how you would have handled that situation in the current day. I have a lot of problems kind of trying to figure out what in my lifetime was child abuse and what in my lifetime was a product of the time. I do believe that she overreacted. I do believe that that shouldn't have been the first thing that she came to. I do believe that pushing me to the point of tears was uncalled for and unnecessary. And she's told me several times that she was just doing the best that she knew how, and I don't have any way of really like knowing if that's really how the case is, because I mean, from all of my knowledge, she was greatly abused, at least mentally, as the only female in her family as well. So, for all I know, that could be the best to her ability because she doesn't know any different. I want to give these excuses because I, despite everything, do still care about and love my mother. But at the same time, at what point do I keep giving excuses for people? At one point do I have to admit that, yeah, my childhood was really messed up. And I shouldn't have had to go through a lot of the things that I went through. And worse yet, when I bring this up to my mother about how I shouldn't have gone through things the way I went through them, she either outright denies that they happened, or she just, I don't know, she just gives an excuse about how it was the best she knew at the time. Because I'm an adult right now, like, I wouldn't do those same things to my children. And I have to ask myself, is this because I learned what was bad from her being brought up with these things and not enjoying them and feeling tormented? Or is it a thing that I'm adult, she was an adult, and these are things that we should understand and comprehend as adult as bad? I don't know. I think it would be interesting to really evaluate these kinds of things and like genuinely know from like a psychological level what would have been the line, because it's so blurred for me at this point that I don't really know. Anyway, like I said, this was one of the more tame things that I could tell you guys. And I do want a discussion in the comments. I do want to know, was this too much to share? Was this more personal than I should have shared? Was this outing my family in a way that is disrespectful? I don't know, honestly. I just want your opinion on what I should share and what I shouldn't. If this was too far, then most of the other stories I could tell you are definitely too far. Because a lot of stuff has happened to me and most of it's not been good. I have more bad stories that I could tell you than good stories I could ever. Like, my good stories that I could tell you are probably I could count them on one hand. And I don't know if that's a testament to how hard life is or whether that's a testament to how messed up my family is. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of both. But at the end of the day, these are my experiences and I have to live with them. Maybe I should be in therapy, but at this point I'm on Medicaid and I don't have a clue whether or not Medicare. Medicaid is for old people. There's a difference. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know if someone could reach out and tell me whether that's a thing that I can have covered on my health insurance. I would be willing to look into that because I know my life has been messed up. I know this stuff has been messed up. I know what I just told you was kind of messed up. So if that's the thing, then I'm all for signing up for that. It's just going to be difficult with the whole not having a vehicle and things like that. Never learning how to drive, which is another traumatic story that I could tell you guys that might be okay, but it like spans over years, and I don't have the best memory. The reason that I have as much of a memory I have of the things that have happened to me is because they were so traumatic. They're like burned into my brain. So stuff like not knowing how to drive and being afraid of cars to the point that I can't get behind the wheel. I don't know that that's something that I can like put together in thoughts hard enough to like formulate a lengthy story for it. Because I don't remember all the details. I just remember that there was little to no help for me when it came to learning how to drive that I didn't do myself by trying to take driver's ed and things like that. And that's as far as I ever got. And the driver's ed guy was like so frustrated with me because I had no outside learning besides the one time he drove me and the one time I got to drive that he didn't want to deal with me anymore. I mean, he's a school teacher. That's not his problem, that. And I totally get that. So I'm not blaming that guy. That guy did what he could for what he was getting paid to do. And that's just like one instance of that whole story. But that's like one of the few things I remember because it wasn't super traumatic. It just wasn't there. I guess it's the best way to describe it. Anywho, I'm running out of things to jabber about, and I still have like 2-3 more minutes to go. I do hope that you guys appreciate the story. If not, let me know. I'll try to find something more wholesome to speak about that is long enough to speak about. Like the few memories I do have are like silly things, like back when my dad was alive. I was like maybe 4 or 5 years old, and on Sundays he would go and get the paper so that he could read the sports section. And he'd take me, and we'd go to the little food store place, and I'd grab the rainbow zebra stripe bubble gum. He'd get me the rainbow striped zebra bubble gum, and I would proceed to eat, and I mean eat, the whole pack. Well, he read the paper, and I would grab the funnies and pretend I knew how to read, and I'd look at all the pictures. And those times we he would take me to the store, and I would get to like spend time with my dad. And that's one of my earliest memories, and it's one of my very few fond ones. But see, it's not really long enough to like attribute to a whole video. Like I just told you in the last second or so. That's the whole thing. I don't know if I should be sad about that or not. It's kind of surreal thinking about it. Like, wow, that's one of my one little bit bits of childhood happy, and I can sum it up in less than a minute. This got depressing. Anywho, let's talk about the picture. Let's just finish off with the picture here. Like I mentioned before, this is a piece that I've done years ago. I don't actually remember how long ago it was that I originally did this, but this is not the first time I've redone it. I've redone it once before. It accumulated into the smaller picture you see that I have set up as a reference for the stream I was doing to understand what I was doing. And I don't know what possessed me to do it to begin with, because obviously it's a little more what's the word, scandalous than what I usually work on. I know I've got a few other ones that are kind of spicy, but my artwork typically isn't geared towards sexual things. But for some reason I thought frosting and I thought scandalous. I'm not sure where that came from, but now you can't unsee it either. Frosting is sexy. You're welcome. Although I wouldn't put that all over yourself in the bed. That would probably be gross and sticky. I don't understand anything that has to do with food and that particular thing as far as, like, realistically speaking, because it's always sticky and nasty and just a mess. Anywho, as I kind of already stated, I do this stuff on Twitch. I'm trying to get back into being a human being, which means I'm going to attempt to make Twitch a habit, which means you'll see more of me on Twitch doing artwork and video games and whatever else catches my fancy at the time. So if that's something you're interested in, you can come and watch me do these things live, and it's usually a chill time. I'm just chilling. Everybody in chat's just chilling. Not that there are many people in there, and you can come and watch how the process works within the hours that it actually happens. Anywho, I will see you guys next time, or in Twitch live. Until then, toodles!